Hi, this is the show known as Just Saying the Obvious, and I'm your host, Dennis Conforto. Today, we're going to talk about something that is very divisive in our country. I'm going to talk about a government agency known as ICE. So let's get to it, shall we?
I'm just saying the obvious, straight talk, nothing mysterious. If you want it real, come ride with us. I'm just saying the obvious.
One of the challenges we have in America is getting all the known facts on the table all at the same time. This is a problem with politics. Each side has a set of facts, part of the facts, but not necessarily all the facts. And I'm of the opinion that reasonable people come to a reasonable conclusion when all the known facts are on the table at the very same time. The division happens when all of the facts are not on the table at the same time. For example, when we go into a court of law, we swear that we're going to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help us God. But there's a key word in there, or phrase, the whole truth. And so what happens when we get part of the facts, each side is claiming to be more factual than the other. Each side declaring a truth, but just part of the truth. And a lot of times, declaring these partial truths is a way to create fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and a way for the politicians to use that fear, uncertainty, and doubt to raise money. I don't think it would surprise you to know, if you think about it long enough, that a substantial amount of time of people in Congress is spent raising money. There are two buildings outside of the Capitol building where they go to their respective party headquarters, and essentially, while they're in there, they spend their time dialing for dollars. I'm not even sure why we even allow that to happen. I certainly don't vote on people to go to Congress, or I don't vote for a senator for their ability to raise money. I vote for them to go and institute policies that I would like to agree with or tend to agree with. And we see this problem now illustrated when we talk about ICE, a law enforcement agency in the United States that is following laws that were written by a duly elected Congress. And the challenge is related to ICE is something that is important, I think, to all Americans. It is a human quality that I love. It's my favorite thing about me because I think I'm a person of great empathy. At least I like to think I am. I'm empathetic for a lot of different reasons. I was homeless, living on the streets of Seattle as an 18-year-old for a year, and that made me very empathetic. I was separated from my family when I was 7 years old, and that made me empathetic to all sorts of situations related to children. I'm empathetic towards immigrants who come into the country, even if they come in illegally. I have a certain level of empathy. I don't know their whole story, and that's part of the problem because they're supposed to tell their story when they come into the country. We want them to knock on the door, sign the registration, and come in so that we can hear their story and so that we can vet them. We talk a lot about due process, but if they come into the country illegally, the due process of the American people is trampled upon. We didn't have the opportunity to interview them and to vet them and to check their background to see if in their own home countries they weren't criminals and running from the law, and that's why they're coming to our country. And so we have the right, by law, to have everyone go through that interview process to see if they are qualified to enter our country or not. I think as a nation, we also have the right to decide how many immigrants we need to come into the country and for what jobs we would like them to fulfill to make sure that we don't get inundated. When we had under the Biden administration 10 or 15 or 20 million, 25 million, and see, that's a problem right there. We don't know how many people came in. Some people think it's a very high number. Some think it's a lower number, but even the low number, 10 million, is still a high number. But when that happened, we didn't even have the housing for that, which then turned around and raised the costs of rental property in the United States. It impacted all sorts of things as we continue to run up greater and greater deficits, being told that having immigrants in our country, even if they're illegal, is somehow a profit center. But the profit center never seemed to show up in our national deficit. The deficit kept increasing greatly under that process. So we violated the principles of our own due process under the Biden administration of having the right and ability to decide who comes into our country, when they come into our country, for how long they come into our country, and also giving them the opportunity to become citizens of the country. And there's a whole series of process that we go through. A lot of people complain that the border laws are broken, but it turns out that most of the countries of the world have implemented our border standards for entering into the country. It's not that our border laws, our immigration laws are broken. It's the fact that one particular party broke our immigration laws by not following the law. In other words, Congress enacts a series of laws, and the executive branch, the President of the United States and his cabinet, are then responsible for administering the law. And so you have a president in one case, in President Biden's situation, where he decided to ignore the law. I don't know why he did that. I'm not sure he even knows he did do that. And another president, President Trump, who is sworn by the duty of his office to uphold the law, which he is attempting to do. And so we have this thing where one party got rid of due process by allowing millions of people to come into the country, and then wants due process, which is much slower, of exiting millions of people out of the country. In fact, if we were going to go through that, quote, due process of entering the country, only a million or two could have entered the country under that process. And now we have to exit 10 or 20 million under due process, which everybody knows is going to take 20 years to do. And that seems unreasonable to me. It doesn't seem logical, doesn't have common sense. Of course, there are lots of people who don't believe that the world should have borders at all for any reason. We have border laws because we know that there's evil in the world, and we don't want to invite evil into our country. We already know from 9/11 what happens when we allow evil to come into the country. 9/11 had a commission of all the things we were supposed to do to prevent that event from ever happening again. And under the Biden administration, all of those recommendations were completely ignored. We now know we have known terrorists in our country. We don't know where they're at, what they're doing, what they are planning. Hopefully, we will be able to find them all before something happens. But most people in the intelligence agencies tell us, all of us collectively, that it's not when something's going to, or not if something's going to happen, but when it's going to happen. So then we have this other problem where we have empathy without wisdom. And again, I shared with you that I feel like I'm a very empathetic person, but I want to be an empathetic person that has a lot of wisdom while I'm having my moments of empathy. As I said, I know people that have come into the country illegally in my lifetime. Some of them were friends, people that I loved. I neither encouraged them to come into the country illegally, but when they were here illegally, I constantly said, you might want to get a green card. You might want to do this. You might want to do that as part of the legal process. And for whatever reason, they didn't. Some did, but for whatever reason, others did not. I don't know. Maybe they did something back in their own home country for which they knew they would never be able to enter into the country legally. I just don't know. So we have policies that are now being set up by sanctuary cities. And I get it. They're trying to be empathetic. They're trying to say that people should be welcomed and there's no such thing as illegal people. I get the bumper sticker slogan. I understand it. And then they create a series of laws to protect in their sanctuary city people who are crossing the border illegally. Now, here's the problem with that, and here's where empathy without wisdom becomes dangerous to us all. If you're empathetic for, let's say, two groups of people that are coming into the country, we will call them and define them as one group as sheep, gentle, good people, hardworking. We all know who they are. We see them all the time. And then there are the wolves dressed up like sheep who are among them. And this is where our empathy without wisdom can be disastrous for our country. We've had, over the last 20 years, at least 2 million Americans who have died because of drug overdoses and fentanyl. We have no idea how many hundreds of thousands or maybe millions that died on the other side of the border at the hands of the cartel trying to get them up here. We don't know how many in the United States that are controlled by these wolves dressed up like sheep who are running houses of prostitution, drug rings, gangs, even some that are involved in selling body parts of humans, which is, to me, just unbelievable that something like that could even happen in the United States. And even sex trafficking of children, which we have no idea how large that is, but we know that something, all of us know inherently, something terrible is happening in that environment. In the last administration, they had lost close to 300,000 children that they couldn't account for that came across the border. Some sheep in wolves' clothing acting like they were the parents of these children, taking them inside the United States to do what with them, we do not know. And all of that is being protected in these sanctuary cities. It wouldn't be surprising for you to know that within the sanctuary cities, the wolves hide out in open. And so I don't understand empathy without a little bit of wisdom, being practical about what is happening within that community. And then the ICE agents who are fulfilling the law to go out and find the criminal elements, of which 70% of who they capture are the criminal elements. And the other 30% that people are crying about are those sheep who haven't really committed a criminal act themselves, are hiding the criminals, which is a criminal act. I can't imagine having even a family member who was a murderer or a drug dealer that I was protecting. I wouldn't protect them. I wouldn't assist them. I wouldn't help them. I just wouldn't, because my empathy clicks off for the people that they might impact in my community or within my own family. So I have to have empathy with wisdom at the same time. And this is part of the problem that we have of half-truths. And when I mean half-truths, the other half of the truth is missing. So everything that Democrats and Republicans are saying are technically correct from their perspective, but all of that is not on the table at the same time. So reasonable people cannot come to a reasonable conclusion about what we should do. And of course, ICE is now being criticized because they're wearing masks, but they're wearing masks for a very specific reason. And the reason they're wearing masks is because the cartel has facial recognition technology, and they want to find out who the ICE members are. They want to know where their house is, and they want to threaten that ICE agent's spouse and their children's lives for them to comply with their request, whatever that request may be. Look the other way. We don't know. We have no idea what they would do with the information, but what we do know they would do with the information wouldn't be good. And we know it wouldn't be good because the cartel has been declared by the United States government a terrorist organization. And why they weren't a terrorist organization 20 years ago, I will never know, because they always seem like a terrorist organization to me. And when we speak about empathy, We need to speak about the 2 million Americans who died in a battle with the cartel for which there is no memorial for. 2 million Americans. Unknown thousands, millions of people who've been negatively impacted by the cartel where their lives have been totally ruined. And so empathy without wisdom, for me, is suicidal empathy. And my empathy, while it is great, I'd never let my empathy get to suicidal empathy. And suicidal empathy is reflected in the number of Americans who have been killed for which no one speaks in behalf of. We talk about the illegal aliens who have killed Americans, which is obviously a tragedy. Everybody understands that. It's not talked about enough. Those families are impacted forever, and they're impacted by the empathy shown in the sanctuary cities who seem to concentrate all of their empathy on the sheep mixed in with the wolves, mixed in with the citizens of the United States, where we literally have a killing field going on across the country without anybody really saying anything about it. So you know you have a political ideology when you begin to delete known facts. In fact, that's why we have political ideologies. If you look at all of them, they always delete some important piece of information that is important to all of us. So if you want to say the obvious, like I try to do in my writings and in these podcasts, you have to include all the content. You have to include the good, the bad, the ugly, thoughts on the left, thoughts on the right, so that all the known facts are on the table at the same time, so we can all come to a reasonable conclusion. I'm Dennis Conforto, and this is just saying the obvious once again.
Pull up a chair, got something to share. Politics, policy, life, we go there. Gun, yeah. Name's Dennis, say it how it is. From the kitchen table talk to the big biz. Headline spinning, but I cut through the spin. If you're tired of the noise, let's begin. I'm just saying the obvious, saying what you're thinking anyway. From the loss to the cost of your coffee cup, to the mess of your everyday. Yeah, I'm just saying the obvious, straight talk, nothing mysterious. If you want it real, come ride with us. I'm just saying the obvious.
I have watched the political and media edit. I have watched this.
On the mic, yeah.